Welcome, age of vintage society. Jean Harlow turned the heads of men and her audience at large. She was a master of letting the self-appointed morality police froth at the mouth, an alleged black widow who played roles in films that increased her legend as a man-eater. Excitement wasn't far away from Harlow's life, even if panties and bra were. However, there's for those who live in the fast lane of life. You guessed right. Accidents, or more precisely put, death. Was Jean Harlow really a loose woman? Make sure to watch the video until the end and leave your thoughts in the comments. If you are new here, join our wonderful community by subscribing to the Age of Vintage channel. Hollywood ripped Jean Harlow off, and that's just putting it nicely. The iconic pantless symbol created a new template, the blonde bombshell, which would inspire actresses that came after her. Among those actresses that chose her path is Marilyn Monroe, who also inherited Jean's dark aspects, namely a tongue that writhed for alcohol. Marilyn, a ruthless man-eater in her own right, also shared the same stylist Harlow used, even though the stylist has some questionable methods for bleaching hair. Some would say the stylist was partly responsible for killing Harlow. But what did Monroe care about? She was the successor to the great voluptuous actress. Marilyn didn't care that Harlow's hair slowly fell apart when Jean Harlow hadn't even reached it yet. Marilyn also didn't care that Harlow dealt with some potentially noxious killer fumes in the process of transforming herself. Born with brown hair, Monroe's taking over as the hair would not have been complete without dyeing her hair platinum blonde, just like her predecessor. Well, unlike Harlow's weekly dousing of her hair with peroxide, Marilyn did have the sense to make hers every 3 weeks. To underscore how unique Jean is, Hollywood took 14 years, 70 screen tests and a couple of $1 million to find a successor to Jean Harlow. However, not all aspects of Jean's life are worthy of emulation. While having a great body, her life would make for a gloomy soap opera. Although in a way you can call the sensual actress a victim of her own body and unfortunate familial relationships, she entered into a career she didn't want because of the manipulations of her mother, whose mistakes and excessive control of Jean's life ensured she had to act or starve. She developed a sexual image she could have avoided because she was unfortunate to be around during pre-code Hollywood. During the pre-code Hollywood era, audiences were just having a taste of motion pictures, where it was more than just motion. Actors and actresses began to talk, but talking wasn't just what the audience wanted. The Great Depression had American audiences wanting more for the money that they were about to part with to check out new flicks. Jean Harlow's pointy nipples gave them the extra motivation to part with their money. The salacious actress had a body the likes of which Hollywood hadn't seen in a while, and studio bosses took advantage of this. Hal Roach took advantage of this by offering Jane a small role in Double Whoopee, introducing the audience to the actress's bum. The audience went berserk and the morale police screamed damnation. In that scene where the actress appeared, she played the role of a lady dropping from a taxi and having her clothes torn when the doorman accidentally shut the taxi door on her clothing. While the audience went crazy on the illusion of nakedness, the people on set saw the real deal. Sultry Jean didn't wear anything underneath her gown for the scene. The usual thing was that she could have worn nude-coloured knickers to portray the said nudity. Voluptuous Harlow created a legend at the time that she went commando more often than not. Also, she helped solidify the impression that she was loose. This impression made studio execs target her as a recipient of their unwanted attention. Jean had spent her whole life dealing with such attention. Her stepfather, Mario Bello, an Italian gangster who also became her manager due to her mother's insistence, gave her such attention. The two-bit gangster had snuck to see her naked when she was a teenager. When lustful viewing of Harlow's body wasn't enough, he made moves for sex and would silence Harlow by threatening to release her even more damning pictures. With a persona that made the male audience tug their member fondly while fantasizing about her, producer Howard Hughes, who she went to work for after leaving Roach, took advantage of this. Apart from his own films, which focus more on Harlow's body than skills, he loaned her to other studios that used Harlow for similar purposes. These studios only needed Jean to make an appearance, and it got so much that 3 films to appear were released on the same day. Howard got paid handsomely for each appearance Harlow was making. He got $3,500 for each appearance, and he was generous enough to pay Jane $200. Hollywood wasn't kind to Jane and took advantage of her body for peanuts, although this didn't go on for long, as Harlow would switch studios due to the efforts of Paul Byrne. Jean stirred the loins of men or women, directed the fashion choices of women, and gave Hollywood magazines a fun time with scandals. Perhaps her most prominent one would be her relationship with Paul Byrne, who was her benefactor and later turned husband. Their relationship shouldn't have happened in retrospect, and even at the time people wondered where the attraction was coming from. Byrne, an MGM top dog, was described as a cold person who rarely showed emotions, as opposed to the livelier Jane. Jane seemed happy to be with Byrne. "He likes me for my mind. He isn't pawing me all the time." People didn't believe this. Many felt Jane was using the man to secure her future as an actress. To point out her admiration of Paul, the sexy siren revealed, "All I want is to sit at Paul's feet and have him educate me." Byrne had worked behind the scenes to help Jane leave the clutches of Howard Hughes, and perhaps the marriage was the fee he was promised. Their marriage soon hit the rocks for reasons that would forever be shrouded in rumours. Within 2 moons the honey had left their relationship, and it began to show, as Byrne began openly criticising Harlow. Today it would be about her literacy, tomorrow there will be tasteless jokes about her character. While the jibes were going on TV, reportedly, Byrne would strike the blonde bombshell as mighty as he could with his fists and walking stick. Apparently it was the only form of striking Byrne could do, as he had an anatomy that prevented him from convincing his manhood to acknowledge Jean's sexiness. After all, Harlow was not a stranger to this sort of physical assault, and she took it as business as usual. She continued working on the film Red Dust, where she acted alongside Clark Gable, and that movie caused a public uproar when it was released. There was a scene in that film where the commando goddess bathed naked in a barrel with her on-screen sweetheart stroking her hair. The audience would froth in the mouth when the film was released in 1932, but before the release the tongues of people were wagging and asking the same question. Why did Paul Byrne shoot himself? 2 months into the marriage, against the backdrop of beatings and insults on TV, Byrne shot himself in the head one night. This was just the continuation of the turbulent and broken life for Harlow. Different rumours swirled within the people. Some alleged Harlow was the one who offered Paul as an eyewitness to see a woman fleeing the scene. To further add to the mystery of the death, Paul's first wife, and we say wife because they were never divorced, drowned herself. As if the loose ends weren't enough, Paul wrote a suicide note which read, "Dearest dear, unfortunately, this is the only way to make good the frightful wrong I have done you, and to wipe out my abject humiliation. You understand that last night was only a comedy." We may never know what the comedy of that night was. Unfortunately, when she got her respite, death snatched her away at the young age of 26. She lived a short life, and while it was filled with troubles, it was eventful. 3 abortions, 1 belonging to the first husband she married, and the other 2 being from carelessness, a marriage of 2 months, and another which barely lasted a year. Jean Harlow, or Baby as her mother liked to call her, had a life that had more downs than ups. Oh, we almost forgot there was one time she got with Bugsy Siegel, a renowned gangster, and they were so close that she became his daughter's godmother. And typical of her plethora of unfortunate choices, she had a thing with a boxer, Max Bayer, whose marriage hadn't quite ended with his estranged wife. His wife wouldn't have it and promised to tank Harlow's career and smear the reputation of MGM, the studio that held Harlow's contract. MGM responded by not only having Harlow break off her relationship with Max, but getting her to marry Harold Rosson, a cinematographer. Of course the marriage wouldn't last, there wasn't true substance in it, but Max blamed Harlow's mum for her incessant interference. It didn't surprise people who understood the dynamics between Harlow or Baby and her mum on Mama Jean, as many referred to her. After all, it was Mama Jean's manipulation of Harlow that destroyed not only her relationship with her first husband, McGrew, but the abortion of the child that would have come to be as a result of their marriage. Not that Mama Jean cared. Harlow carried the pain of that abortion till she died. Privately, Baby told a friend, "I wanted that child that was taken from me. My whole life would have been different if I'd been given that baby." To show how much of a pawn Harlow was in Mama Jean's grand scheme, people who were somewhat close to the pair at the time would say, "Harleen was passive and Mother Jean was strong." Another noted, "She had complete control over that girl. Harleen had no willpower. She didn't stand up for anything." So how did Baby, a certified sexy doll, become a doll, a plaything for her mom? It all began when Baby's mom, Jean Carpenter, née Harlow, a daughter of a wealthy real estate developer, had a dalliance with a lowly railroad conductor. It was a scandal that shocked her father and made him hastily arrange her marriage to Montclair Carpenter, an eligible bachelor of great potential. Montclair Carpenter was a dentist with different offices, a top drawer for many ladies. Jean Carpenter, a voluptuous blonde bombshell who straightened the members of men, dreamed of going to Hollywood. She had seen the actresses of that time, and to be fair, she was even more of a looker than they were. With one of her eyes set on Hollywood, whatever Mr. Carpenter did for her fell beyond her expectations. Things remained the same when she gave birth to her sweet baby, Harleen Carpenter, on March 3rd, 1911. As you may have come to guess, Jean Harlow was Harleen's stage name, and yes, it was her mother's maiden name. Curious, isn't it? Jean Carpenter's father and Mont Blanc were happy, and they doted on baby Harleen so much, but Mama Jean wouldn't have that. She isolated her child from her grandfather and father, and prevented the child from having friends. Her child having friends meant people of Kansas City, Missouri, would discover that their home was unhappy. Secretly or not, Jean Carpenter wished her husband's death. The isolation of baby Harleen from other people allowed Mama Jean to become the centre of Jean Harlow's world, and it showed when Harlow said when she was younger, "I love you better than anything that ever its name was heard of. Please know I love you better than 10 lives." When Harlow turned 11, her family broke apart due to her mother's insistence that she would become a movie star. Mama Jean had a habit of sticking her head into the clouds when she needed to be realistic. With her $200 support, Mama Jean enrolled her baby in the Hollywood School for Girls and would go from one studio to the other, but her age denied her the opportunity she wanted. For someone who had made her child's life revolve around hers, Mama Jean would abandon Harlow with friends while warming the beds of her European lover, but Grandpa Harlow declared her fun to be over and ensured Mama Jean returned to Missouri. Soon after, Jean Harlow would be sent to Ferry Hall, a prestigious girls' boarding school, while her mum got into a relationship with Mario Bello, an unsavoury character that made her daughter's life a living hell. When Harlow clocked 16, she met a 21-year-old Charles McGrew through one of her classmates at Ferry Hall, and the two would marry. Charles was the heir to the McGrew wealth and would make good use of it that soon. He and Harlow would move to Beverly Hills, and if Harlow had known what the hills held for, and the destruction it would bring her relatively stable life, she would have convinced Charles that they shouldn't have moved. At this time, Mama Jean had already sunk her claws into the relationship, as reports have it that she was already blackmailing McGrew, but the true war hadn't begun. Their contest for Jean Harlow began when Fox execs Harlow accidentally made when she went to drop off a friend at the studio. The sexy siren got a letter of introduction she didn't intend to use until she told her mum, and Mama Jean, seeing an opportunity, insisted her daughter should go. Not only did baby go, she used her mother's maiden name. She started as an extra with Fox, having a brief appearance in Honor Bound before being transferred to Paramount and Hal Roach's studio. Hal decided to make a star out of Jean and gave her a $100 weekly contract and the iconic skirt-tearing role in Double Whoopee. Soon Harlow got pregnant and asked to be released from her contract. McGrew wasn't a fan of his wife's skirt tearing. Mama Jean didn't allow her baby to go through with it and convinced her to get an abortion, which later led to the divorce between Harley and McGrew. Unfortunately, despite this, Harley still thought her mum knew best. Back home in Missouri, Papa Harlow denounced his beloved granddaughter until she quit acting, and McGrew refused to pay support as he knew he would only be funding Mama Jean. "I turned to motion pictures because I had to work or starve," Harlow admitted. She didn't have the support of Hal Roach, as she had left his studio to what Hal Roach suspected to be an insistence from Mama Jean. After a couple of more extra work, which included a small role in The Saturday Night Kid and her success in winning over Clara Bow, the film's main star who didn't want to share scenes with Harlow. Harlow struck gold with Howard Hughes, who gave her her first big role in the film Hell's Angels. The blockbuster put Harlow on the map for many audiences who were stunned by Harlow's beauty, but not so much by her acting. Hughes didn't care for acting. The audience of the time was depraved, and by seeing a sensual damsel with a body only seen their various fantasies, acting be damned. Notable films like Platinum Blonde were a reflection of audience preference. Harlow wanted to be seen as more than just a siren and was willing to learn, and she got a big salvation when she switched studios to MGM, a family film-focused studio. With her marriage to Byrne came a lot of campaigns washing her image, and her being with MGM also meant consistently sharing the screen with Clark Gable. They appeared in so many films that people believed they were in a relationship. Their first film, like Red Dust, can make people think about things. However, Harlow was caught in a triangle situation with Clark Gable, as she was involved with Gable's male bisexual partner. Hollywood can be messy at times. Harlow would go on to feature in films like The Secret Six, The Red-Headed Woman, The Girl of Missouri, and Saratoga, marking her exit from acting and life. Her health had always been a cause for concern. She survived polio when she was younger, but she had a crisis when she wanted to remove her wisdom tooth. Her hair began to fall off before she entered her late 20s due to her heavy use of peroxide, ammonia, and Lux soap flakes to bleach her hair. There are suspicions that inhaling the noxious fumes that arose from the process, and her only obsession with gin when her second husband died, led to kidney failure. Sadly, kidney failures were fatal at that time, and it snuffed out Jane's life at the young age of 26. Even sadder is the fact that she wanted to die. On her deathbed, when people assured her she'd survive, Harlow said, "I don't want to." If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you're new here, and if you want to support my work, please visit my Patreon page. It is a big question whether Jean Harlow was using men to secure herself or not, but you should definitely check out how Katharine Hepburn jumped from man to get fame. Watch this video.